So I would ask the question, just if you're interested in prophecy, I mean, I believe that there will be an earthly kingdom. I believe the nations were surrendered in real time at Babel. They were judged, and they're going to be reclaimed in real time on the earth too.
In the garden,
Oh, yes.
God provided woman as an Heiser,
Okay.
which is the Hebrew word for delivering ally.
Yep.
And God built it. It's the word built.
Yeah.
And we noted that word because it's weird. It's an architectural term.
Weird in Hebrew.
It's weird in Hebrew to say God built the woman.
Welcome to another episode of Ring Them Bells, where we exist to help you rediscover the Bible on its own terms. We found that the supernatural focus of the Bible has been suppressed, and we are bringing that back into the light. We're doing that with interviews and content from great scholars like Tim Mackie of the Bible Project, and featured here today, Dr. Michael Heiser. Take a moment to subscribe so that you're aware of all the alerts that'll be coming up and other great content that we have coming your way. Let's get started.
The Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the temple. So there you have the glory returning in Ezekiel's temple. While the man was standing beside me, I heard one speaking out of the temple. He said, "Son of man, this is the place of my throne, and the place of the soles of my feet. There I will dwell in the midst of the people of Israel forever. And the house of Israel shall no more defile my holy name, neither they nor their kings, nor their whoring, and their dead bodies, or their kings of the high places. By setting their threshold on my threshold, and their doorpost besides my doorpost, with only a wall between me and them. They have defiled my holy name by their abominations," so on and so forth. So the Lord says, when the glory comes back, it'll be, key word here, forever.
Some of the most beautiful expressions of hope and faith in God in the Bible center around images of a divine city, particularly a city of God that provides, and just notice, thinking about the definition of what city is in the Bible, the primary emphasis is about security, refuge, and a place of order and life in the midst of a world that's like crazy out there. So these are just two kind of at random, but they're ones that pop to my imagination as some of my favorite expressions of this in the Bible. Psalm 46, which is actually kind of a familiar psalm. It gets featured in a lot of contemporary worship songs. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in times of trouble. Therefore, we won't be afraid, even though the land should shift and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea.
It's like decreation.
Exactly right, yeah. Even though the waters roar and foam and the mountains quake at the swelling pride of the waters. So, yeah, I mean, you can even see it right here.
Yeah.
This is like Genesis 1 imagery of the dry land and the chaos waters.
Yeah. But in reverse. With Genesis 1,
exactly.
God takes the waters away.
Mm-hmm.
The land now becomes a stable place for humanity to live, or all of creatures and life.
Yeah, right.
And here, the land is now slipping.
Cracking apart and being submerged under the chaos waters.
Yeah.
Even the highest parts on the land.
Right.
The mountains go down. In other words, it's cosmic decreation. So flood-like proportions through the whole snow globe. The three-tiered cosmos, which the biblical authors take for granted. The waters above in the sky. The land here, and then the waters below the land. But notice how it began.
And around the land.
Yeah, and around the land, correct. Yep. So notice that the poem didn't begin with that, though. The poem begins saying, God is the refuge and strength.
Not the land.
Even if the land itself, the cosmos as we know it, collapses in on itself, there is still a solid refuge that transcends the land. And that is God. Because God's the author of all of it. And so God is a place of refuge. Okay, that's verse 1. Down to verse 4, continuing. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of Elohim, of God, the holy dwelling places of the Most High. God is in the middle of her, and she, that is the city, which is now a woman, she will not be moved. God will help her when the sun rises at the morning. The nations are making an uproar. The kingdoms totter and fall. He raises his voice and the land melts. God, Elohim, yeah. Yahweh of armies, the Lord of hosts. The Yahweh of armies is with us. The Elohim of Jacob is our stronghold. There's actually one more stanza to the poem below it, but this is enough for us to meditate on here.
There is a river whose streams make glad the city of Elohim. There's a river.
Yeah.
And the river has streams, meaning currents, like the way its movement.
Streams. Maybe it breaks into streams.
Breaks into streams, okay. So there's a river, branches out. I mean, this is connected to, I imagine, the river of life, the river that flows from Eden that breaks into 4 rivers that water the whole world.
Totally. For sure, that's what's on the brain here.
So there's a river.
Yep.
This is the river.
The heavenly river.
The heavenly river. The Eden River.
Yeah, the Eden River, yeah.
That's bringing life to all of creation.
Yeah.
And it branches out, so it streams. Its streams make glad the city of God?
They bring joy.
Okay.
And what you expect is the garden.
Joy to the people who experience the water.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. The inhabitants of said whatever place the water's going to go, it brings them joy because it sustains their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
But it's making glad the city.
A city.
Of God.
God's city. You're like, wait, I thought it's God's garden. No, it's God's city.
Oh, interesting.
It's a city.
Because the river of life flowed out of a garden into all the world. There's no cities.
Well, or it flows out and waters the garden and then, flows out and waters other lands and other places. But the point is that on page 1 and 2 of the Bible, the river that God provides grows a garden, and the garden is the refuge in the place. So now it's a city of God. And notice what the city is called, the holy dwelling places of the one way up high, the most high. The highest of the heavens of the heavens. So this is a heavenly city.
Yeah.
Because it's God's dwelling place in the highest of the highs.
Yeah, you don't picture the Jericho type city where it's like, it's out there, there's a wall around it. This is where the rivers are going. But like up on the mountain, the garden place, the like temple place, this is what we're supposed to be picturing here.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's described as a city.
But the curiosity is, it's all of the imagery that fits the Garden of Eden, of a centralized river, a holy dwelling place. Next line, God is in the middle of her. You're like, oh, like the tree of life in the middle of the garden.
Yeah.
But it's called very clearly not the garden, but the city.
Yeah. Now, also, this was how they thought of Jerusalem, though, right? High on a mountain, God was in the middle of it.
Yeah, totally. But Jerusalem is also on the land. Yeah? Jerusalem's on a high mountain that would slip into the heart of the sea. So we're not talking about an earthly city.
Okay.
Because that would, fall in one of those crevasses that opened up when the land melts. You know what I'm saying? Because the whole thing is that here down on the land...
You don't think they're saying like, oh, the other cities will slip into the sea, but our city won't?
No, the mountains slip into the heart of the sea and everything with them. Cosmic decreation. You put your finger on. This is about a cosmic collapse.
Okay.
Even if there's cosmic collapse, there's still one place that's safe.
So we're talking about something kind of metaphysical at this point.
Yeah, and actually, notice how the poem began. God is our refuge, a very present help in trouble. What kind of trouble? The poem goes on, like cosmic collapse.
Like the ultimate trouble.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But, so how is it that God can be our refuge if the all reality collapses? Well, because there's a river.
Oh, the river. I mean, what does that mean?
Whose streams bring joy to God's city that is up on the height of the heights of the heights.
The heights of the heights of the heights. Where do you get that?
It's the dwelling place of the Most High One.
Okay.
The word Most High isn't just rhetorical flourish. It means the one who dwells in the heavens of the heavens of the heavens, the Most High. As high up as you can think,
Okay.
that's where the Most High
So
dwells.
this is the city of the sky.
It's the heavenly city.
Huh.
It's God's city.
And God is in the midst of her.
Mm-hmm.
So the city is a her.
Yeah, so the God's in the midst of her, and she, that
She's
city,
not going to slip into the sea.
can't slip into the sea. Yeah,
She will not be moved.
no. God will help, will bring help. And the word help appears 2 times here, and as we're going to not see in this conversation, but the next one, that's so important, the word help.
Is this the same word from the garden?
You remember there was an important analogy in the design of the narrative in the garden.
Yeah.
In between the story of Adam and Eve in the garden and then Cain and his wife and the building of the city.
Oh, right.
In the garden,
Oh, yes.
God provided woman as an Heiser,
Okay.
which is the Hebrew word for delivering ally.
Yep.
And God built it. It's the word built.
Yeah.
And we noted that word because it's weird. It's an architectural term.
Weird in Hebrew.
It's weird in Hebrew to say God built the woman
Okay.
because it's the word you use to describe the construction of buildings.
Yeah.
And then,
There's a whole series of play on words, right?
yes, a whole series of play on words. The word Ezer looks almost graphically identical to the Hebrew word Ir, which is the word city. So when Cain is exiled and God says, hey, I'm going to protect your life and place a sign on you, and Cain ends up not wanting to take God at his word, what we're told is outside of Eden, he finds a wife, he knows her, that is, has sex with her, they have a child together, and then he builds a city.
Yeah.
What God provided for Adam, now Cain provides for himself. God built the Ezer, now Cain builds the Ir. And which means
It's a contrast we're supposed to pay attention
what
to.
God wanted to provide was a partner for the human so that the humans can be 2 but also 1.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, the delivering ally that God provided would be the womb that continues the preservation, the hosting and the preservation of life,
Yeah.
the mother. And that's what Adam calls Eve. Em kol chai. She is the mother of all living. And I think this analogy between Eve and the city is what's underneath a really prominent theme is that cities, when they're depicted metaphorically in biblical poetry, are always depicted as mothers.
The city is a mother.
Yeah, the city is a mother. The city is Eve. But just like Adam and Eve, an image of God can become a source of life in the world or a source of folly and death. And so in the same way, cities, and cities are set on analogy to Eve, cities can become a source of life in the world, a womb out of which life is preserved and emerges, or they can become a source of folly and death. In other words, there's an analogy between cities and humans.
Okay.
They can be good, they can go bad. And I think this is our core thing about cities. Is our core point is that the city is a human creation, and as an extension of human,
It's our shell.
it's a shell. Yeah, it can be used for good or it can be used for bad. And the biblical authors want to primarily highlight how it's for bad, but they'll occasionally highlight how it becomes a womb or a source of life. The Joseph story does that, shows
Yeah.
us the city of Egypt, and in what we'll see today, Jerusalem becomes the primary mother of all living, at least for a time.
How far can we push this analogy between the woman and the city?
Well, I think it's set up in the design
Uh-huh.
of the early Genesis stories, so they're trying to stoke our imaginations.
That the city to humanity is like the woman to man.
Yes, yeah. Dude, this is a gold mine right here.
What, Eitzer or Ezer?
Ezer.
Ezer?
Ezer is
Is
the
it
word
Ezer?
help. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so notice, look here, God will help her when the sun rises, when the light comes, when the light enters into the dark chaos.
The new creation.
That's God's help. The concept of Eden and the way the afterlife of Eden, cosmic mountain imagery in the rest of the Bible is that they're a place where God is firmly in the middle, is a place that can be heaven and earth at once.
Okay.
And so if there is a city that is heaven and earth at the same time, then that heaven on earth city is not, what do you say, is not in danger, even if the cosmos collapses.
Okay.
I guess that's the point here.
Okay.
And that's why the Eden imagery is key, and also the heavenly high up imagery.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking too is you get to the last line.
Exactly, yes.
And you get this, the Lord of hosts is with us. You get this sense of like, okay, we're in our city. All these nations want to come and take us out.
Yeah, actually, here, let me pause there.
Okay.
So in verse 3 of the poem, the waters are roaring and foaming, surrounding the mountains
Right.
as they quake and collapse. And then in verse 6, the nations are roaring
Yeah.
and the kingdoms are tottering. So now it's the chaos waters have become imperial invading armies surrounding the mountain city, trying to invade it. And they totter, and the land melts when Yahweh addresses them, but the city is not harmed.
Yeah.
The city remains safe.
Yeah. And how can you read that as an Israelite and not think like that's us, that's Jerusalem?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
No, I mean, the imagery is going there. The question is, does the imagery stay fixated on it, the actual city
Because it's definitely
of Jerusalem?
something not beyond. It's something bigger and or ideal.
Yeah, like a heavenly Jerusalem.
A heavenly Jerusalem.
Yeah, to use the language of the last chapters of the Christian Bible. So notice also the interchangeability of God and the city. So it begins, God is our refuge, but then God's in the middle of the city. So now the city can be your refuge, right? Because if you're in the city, you're protected. So there's the emphasis on both God as the refuge and then the city where God dwells is there protected. In the last line of this stanza, the God of Jacob is the stronghold.
Back to God being
Back to God, but God's depicted as a city. So now God is like the city. The city is God.
Where do you get that the city is God?
So God is our refuge and our strength. So there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God.
Okay.
God's in the middle of her. She won't be moved. God is our stronghold. So if you're in the middle of the city with God, the city won't be moved. And who or what is the city? Well, it's the city and it's God, because God is our stronghold.
There's a lot of connection here between God and the city that he's in the middle of.
Yes.
That's a her. But I don't know if it doesn't seem as strong enough to say God is the city.
Okay.
It's almost like, but there's a relationship there that is very
Thank you.
connected.
Yeah, the point is if you're in this space with God in the middle, you are protected in that space because God is there.
Right.
Yeah, and God's presence, it's where he lives. It's a dwelling place. Yeah.
The city of God.
Yeah. So you can see we're pulling on all this Garden of Eden, early chapters of Genesis, but in the place of the garden is the city.
Yeah.
So we're back to that puzzle because so when does the city become a part of the equation then?
Right. Well, just to be practical about it, they're now living in cities. I mean,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
that's their lived experience.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's their vision of reality. But this is a poem found in a collection of scrolls whose ideal beginning for all humanity is a garden, very much without walls.
You're saying they could have had an ideal of like, look, we need to get rid of this city and just go back to being garden people.
Yeah.
Take down the walls.
Yeah, sure.
Like plant gardens.
Yeah.
Live in huts.
Yeah. And here you can go to many other places in the Hebrew Bible where the prophets, for example, look forward to a restoration for Israel. For example, Ezekiel chapter 36. I'm going to bring you back to your land. And then verse 30, I will multiply the fruit of the tree, the produce of the field. You won't be disgraced by famine among the nations. You have cities here. I'll cause cities to be inhabited and the waste places to be rebuilt. So I guess there's a city there. But the desolate land will be cultivated. The emphasis is more on
the farming around the city.
Exactly. Fruit tree, farming. The desolate land will become like the Garden of Eden, and the wasteland will be fortified. Oh, fortified and inhabited. Okay, all right.
So we got desolate land
We're
and
mixing it
desolate
together.
cities.
Yes.
And both are like, for some reason, desolate and ruined.
Yeah.
And Ezekiel's saying they're going to become
Totally
fruitful and inhabited.
Yeah. So once we get here to Psalm 46 and to the prophets, when we envision the new creation and the new garden, now cities are in the equation.
Cosmology, again, does not conform to literal expectations, but it's going to communicate really important, and I would say pretty cool, ideas. So I used this illustration, and it's the best one I could find. And look, for those of you who are into like comparative mythology, yes, I know this comes from the Norse gods, okay? I know that. But I like it. It's the best one I could find. This is a picture of the world tree. This was an idea, again, that is present in lots of ancient cultures. Remember the three-tiered cosmology we talked about in weeks past, where we've got the earth, and then there's the firmament, there's waters above the earth, below the earth emerges from the waters and all this stuff, and then there's below the earth, okay, this kind of language, three-tiered cosmos, don't make images of anything on the earth, or that is above the earth, or under the earth. You get it in Exodus 20, which is the Ten Commandments. You get it in the New Testament, Philippians 2. In case I'm doing a really terrible job, quoting it, let's go to Philippians 2:10, just so that you get the flavor of it. At the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth. Okay, it's a three-tiered reality system, three-tiered cosmology. This is what I'm talking about. Now, in the ancient world, this is the conception they had. You had the world above. Again, and this is another place that the gods live because people don't. They're not earthly. Supernatural beings are not earthly. So this isn't where they belong. Okay? They can come here, but it's not really where they belong. So we've got the world up there, we've got the world we experience, and then we've got the world where we go when we die. The underworld. Sheol. Again, these concepts, the words actually mean something, underworld. It actually reflects, again, the cosmology. The idea was that these three things are connected by a polar axis, which the ancients called a world tree. Their conception was, again, that there's this huge axis that goes all the way through all three and connects everything. It connects everything. It holds the cosmology together. It's the chief pillar under the earth, or the chief pillar of the sky, again, to borrow a little biblical language. Now, what might you think of the place that was right in the middle? Would that be an important place? Because that's the place where heaven and earth meet. And that's the place where, if we want access to the dead to hopefully make them alive, that's where that would happen. Jerusalem in biblical theology is the center of the earth. It is the place where the entire cosmos connects and is maintained, specifically Jerusalem. This is why there's a temple there. This is why it's a garden. This is why it's a mountain. It was God's dwelling. He holds all things together. Now, for a Mesopotamian, it was Marduk. Okay, for an Egyptian, it was somebody, and these change. In polytheistic systems, this changes depending on the popularity of a certain deity at a certain time. We had a drought for the last 100 years, that deity stinks, we need a better one, so again, somebody else will take the top position. And they were okay with that. Polytheistic systems are okay with that kind of thinking. They just adapt. So we've got Ezekiel 38:12 12, another example, Ezekiel 5:5. Thus says the Lord, this is Jerusalem. I have set her in the center of the nations. Ooh, now we get the nations in the picture, with countries all around her. And unfortunately, she has rebelled against my rules. If anybody should be walking with me, and if there should be harmony at any place, it should be this one. And it ain't there. Even this place is corrupt. The tree above the ground. Well, if we're in primeval texts, that's the tree of life. Where else would there be life? It's where God is. God is the source of life. You know, there are texts in Judaism that talk about the tree of life sealing up or being over, shutting off the realm of the dead. Again, when you read something like that, if all you can think about is, oh, I wonder what that looked like if I went up and scraped a little bark off of it. Look, that isn't the point. The point is the ideas that the God of Israel is the source of life. He holds the keys to life and death. He creates and he destroys. Okay, nobody else does that because he lives here. This is where his house is, the tree of life, all this stuff. And again, when you get the tabernacle and you get the temple, this is why the imagery of this central place is preserved. It's also why later in eschatology, it's brought back. And isn't it curious? Isn't it curious to go down to the Messiah line there? It's not an accident that the Messiah is described as a tree or a branch. Interesting enough, he's crucified on a tree. Okay, the concepts mean something. Let me just click out here. This is why I said I could spend my whole life in Genesis 1 through 11.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys are enjoying this series. It has revolutionized how I look at the Bible. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, share, turn on the alerts for this channel. All those things help us get the message out about what God has done for this world, and we're so excited to have you here along for the journey. This is a community, and I've loved having all the response and all the connection that I've had with you guys across the globe. So thankful you're here. Tune in. Stay tuned, as we always say. The beginning is near. We've got more coming. See you soon.